Deere is making a big drop to the downside. Let me bring up my extended hours. Take a look at this drop on Deere. Deere again flushing down to about $350 from yesterday's closing area of around 382. It is getting a little bit of a bounce, but on a technical basis, let's go to the daily chart and see where this could be a tradable play. The only thing I'm seeing, guys, all right, the only thing I'm really seeing is right down here. There's a gap fill. This would be your starter position. Starter position, 346. Pivot low, there's also a gap fill there. That would be your first level of interest. Also, one other little tidbit here, draw a trend line through all of these, right? So here you have the pivot points, and I love this, by the way. I love doing this because I actually didn't see this line ahead of time before I started this, and then my eyes just naturally, and by the way, I want to talk about that briefly. When you're learning trend lines in the beginning, it's hard. There's no doubt about it. Eventually, you get to my level, and your eyes just are like, oh, look at that, look at that. Oh, it kind of aligns right through there. Boom, there you get it. So it's just an educational thing. You look at things long enough, your eyes start to naturally draw them before your pencil does. All right, so what do we have here? We have this pivot to here, and to here, and right through. And basically, that coexists right there with this double bottom and gap fill. We'll call it 346 approximately. So a dump to 346, I would expect to bounce. If it continues lower, your secondary level is going to be right in here, and that is going to be around 332. So again, I don't necessarily think on a day like today you're going to get through this level, but just be aware that if it breaks that, you could go down a fair amount more. This is the chart of natural gas. You guys know that I am now bullish after talking in these game plans for the last month, waiting patiently for it to come down to this level. I am now bullish. We've seen it chop around a little bit just to look at the levels again for those of you that may be just tuning in on nat gas. We obviously know we had this channel here, this channel trend line, or I shouldn't say channel, but basically a wedge pattern. And then notice again, we broke out. That was awesome. We chopped around and we've now retraced into this level. So I continue to be a buyer here. Granted, I don't go all in. And remember that, guys. This is very important. Never do I go all in on an initial buy. I don't care how good the level is. And you want to know why? Because no matter how good the level is, I have seen them fail. And that's just the essence of it. I don't care if it's an 80% success rate level, it still means 2 times out of every 10, you are going to lose on that. So therefore, I cushion myself. Being a defensive investor is the most important thing you can do. Essentially, once you go all in on a position, you basically have handcuffs on. You can't maneuver. Because I haven't gone all in on this position and I've just started a small position, guess what? If it dumps down here, I can add to that position. And now my dollar cost average is right in the middle here. If it goes down here, I can add again. And now my dollar cost average, eventually you're going to get some sort of bounce, and it's putting yourself in the position to always be within easy shot of making money in a market environment or any sort of asset class. So again, major support here, probabilities are for a bounce, but if it doesn't plan out, you need to have that maneuverability. Sure, it means that if it bounces right off your level, you may not make as much money as if you had a full position. But to be honest, it's not so much about the money that you make, it's about the money that you don't lose. And that is some wise words right there, guys, that I wish I knew when I was a new trader. And I tell you this honestly, like, you know, the amount of mistakes and amount of things that I'm telling you guys that if I had known when I was a new trader, I would be in a much different position right now. Honestly, it's pretty remarkable. Okay, so let's talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin had a very interesting day yesterday. We know CZ pleaded guilty. Pretty remarkable with CZ. Now, granted, he didn't steal any client money, so there's a big difference between Sam Bankman-Fried and CZ. But I mean, basically, he made billions and billions of dollars. I think he's paying a $50 million fine, and he might spend, what, 18 months in jail? And then he gets to go back in 3 years, potentially, to be the CEO again of Binance. To me, that's a slap on the wrist. You know, granted, it's not comparable to what FTX did or some of these other ones, but still, I mean, you know, good for him for figuring it out and working a deal. I mean, he worked a deal. I think partially the regulators didn't want to really crush Binance because it is a huge exchange and could literally have wiped out a lot of cryptocurrencies. But again, I think this is one step closer to a spot ETF. The more the SEC cleans up crypto, the closer it is to them saying, okay, we can have a spot ETF.